You guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. Coming up on this edition of the Stingray Show, we are going to be talking with a WWE Hall of Famer who then went on to take his career to the political realm of becoming the mayor of Knox County. He has also been an actor in a couple of movies. We will talk to him about all of that coming up on this edition of the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good, kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah, but then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9. With the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And with all of that, we say welcome inside another edition of the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. And Heath, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Stephen. I'm excited about our guest today.
Yes, so let's go on ahead and get...
Our Hall of Fame guest.
Yes, correct, our Hall of Fame guest. So let's go on ahead and get right to it. Our guest is, like Heath said, a WWE Hall of Famer. He is also the mayor of Knox County up in Tennessee. And like I said off the top of the show, he was an actor in See No Evil and also the sequel to that, See No Evil 2. Ladies and gentlemen... will join us right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Kane, how are you doing, sir?
I am fantastic. How are y'all?
Doing great, man.
Good. Now, you're all in Tuscaloosa, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. I'm up here in Knoxville, so it's nice to be joining you via telephone.
Yes, correct. Heath, go ahead.
Mr. Jacobs, so glad for you to join us today. Glenn, I wanted to ask you, I was doing a little research on you, and it looks like you were a military brat. Growing up here and there, looks like you were born in Spain. Talk about that quickly before we get started with the show.
Yes, sir. I was born in Madrid, Spain. My dad was in the Air Force at the time. Previous to that, he had been in the Navy. He served in the Korean War, then was in the Air Force during Vietnam. He retired when I was about 4 years old, so I didn't really get the traveling around the world. My brother and sister did. They're both older than I am. I think they went to like 6 different elementary schools. But in any case, we settled in rural northeast Missouri, close to Hannibal, Missouri. Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to play sports, wanted to play professional baseball. When I realized that I was probably never going to be very good at baseball because of my build, really tall and at that point very clumsy and awkward. But in any case, I started playing basketball because of my height. When I got to college, I started lifting weights, which I had done in high school, put on a lot of weight. Was playing football, looked like I might be able to play in the NFL, blew my knee out in practice. That basically ended my football career. Wanted still to do something involving sports and athletics. And that's how I kind of stumbled onto WWE.
So a quick follow-up to that, what ultimately made you decide to go into the realm of professional wrestling?
As I said, I couldn't play football anymore because of my knee. So I went to the Chicago Bears camp, but couldn't pass physical and was just looking for something to do, man. I'd always wanted to play sports. My degree's in English, so I was going to teach and coach if playing didn't pan out for me. But nevertheless, it had always been my dream ever since I was a little kid to be an athlete, be a professional athlete. And one day I was watching WWE on TV, and I'd always been a bit of a fan of professional wrestling. When I was a little kid, watching growing up, and kind of went away from it when I started playing sports myself and got busy with basketball and then football. But nevertheless, always been a bit of a fan. And one night I'm watching like Hulk Hogan on TV, and I thought to myself, wow, I kind of look like those guys. I'm a big dude, a pretty good athlete, and why not? I thought I might be good at it, got some training from some local people, and found out that I really loved it. I love both the athletic part of it as well as the storyline and the drama part of it. And I thought I'd give it a shot, and things turned out pretty well for me, thankfully.
You were just talking about your English literature degree there in college and wanting to teach and coach. And I was going to ask you about that. What were you going towards? Were you leaning more towards your passion with baseball, or were you going to stick with football, or were you going to do basketball? Were you just going to be an old ball coach and coach all three? What were your plans back then?
It probably would have been basketball and maybe football. I played basketball all my life ever since I was a little kid and then through college. So that's what I had the most experience at. But football, I was just naturally gifted at football because of my size and my body just fit being an offensive lineman. But I had a lot more knowledge about basketball than anything else.
There you go.
Well, you debuted in the United States Wrestling Association as the Christmas Creature and an evil Christmas character in which you unsuccessfully challenged Jerry Lawler for the USWA World Heavyweight Championship. Talk to us about that match and your interaction with Jerry Lawler then.
So the early years in professional wrestling, just like anything else, you pay a lot of dues. I traveled a lot, normally didn't make any money, and really the USWA was my first big break. And what had happened was Kevin Lawler, who was one of Jerry's sons, was helping book the territory and had an idea for this character. It was the holiday season of an evil Christmas creature, and sent some drawings to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Well, frankly, it was a huge step up from what I was doing anyway. So I was like, yeah, sure, man, I'll try it. Also, the opportunity to wrestle Jerry Lawler was a big deal. Jerry Lawler's a huge star, right? So I had the advantage. My mom is a really good seamstress. So mom made the outfit. It included Christmas lights. It had integrated battery pack. So it was actually very cutting edge technology. When I saw Chris Jericho come out with his jacket that lit up and everything, I was like, oh man, I did that 20 years ago, bro. When my mom made the Christmas creature outfit. But nevertheless, that match, those matches with Lawler, certainly now I look back, it wasn't exactly like Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat or anything like that. But nevertheless, it got my foot in the door, got me working with Lawler, and got me some exposure with the folks down at USWA. So it was kind of my first big break. What's amazing now too is for me, and I was just something I did along the way. But it's now it kind of has this cult following, which is very interesting to me because of YouTube and because of the internet and all the different things that we have access to nowadays.
So we were up against our first break, and when we come back, we are going to continue this interview with WWE Hall of Famer Kane. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back. Your life can change on a dime, and if you are relocating for your job up to the Rocket City of Huntsville, the fastest growing city in the state of Alabama, you need to contact Celeste Hagler of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She has brokers all over North Alabama to help you get settled with buying a new home in North Alabama. You can contact her at 205-861-5698. Once again, that is Celeste Hagler, 205-861-5698. 5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to live where you love in the state of Alabama, even in the Rocket City of Huntsville. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Do you guys like to fish? I know I do, and springtime is the perfect time to stock your pond or lake with fish such as brim, threadfin shad, and tilapia. Or are you looking for top quality automatic fish feeders, aeration systems, and fountains? If that is the case, then you need to contact Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries right here in Tuscaloosa. You can get in touch with Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is 205-799-0192. Contact Honey Hole Fisheries today and let them help you build the lake or pond of your dreams.
Catch every game and every moment right here. This is your home of Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And we want to welcome you back inside another edition of the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is WWE Hall of Famer Kane, a.k.a. Glenn Jacobs, who is the mayor of Knox County surrounding Knoxville, Tennessee. And now let's continue our interview with Kane.
I was going to do a quick follow-up to that. Growing up here in the Memphis area, I was born in Memphis. And, for the people that are not from this area, they think when we say the king, they think of Elvis. But if you're born in this area or raised in the Mid-South area, the king is Jerry Lawler. There's no question about it. So for all the locals, the king is Jerry. For the outsiders, it's Elvis. But we all know the true king of Memphis is Jerry Lawler. And with that, what's a funny story that you could share with us about Jerry? What's Jerry like outside the ring?
Jerry really helped me out in my early career. It was interesting, as you said, back in 97, 98, when WWE had taken off and the Attitude Era was at its height, and we're going around the country selling out everywhere, and you have Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and all these huge stars. And we're doing a show at the Pyramid in Memphis, and Lawler's wrestling on the show. Lawler got the biggest reaction of the night, even bigger than Austin, Undertaker, DX, and The Rock. And just, he didn't really wrestle on WWE anymore. He was a commentator at that point. So that just shows you even now, how big a star Jerry is, especially in Memphis and that area. He may have forgotten this story, but we were traveling together once, and I accidentally checked his, he dropped me off the airport to to take care of some stuff and get us all ready for a flight, and accidentally checked his bag to the wrong destination. So don't know if I should bring that one up or not, but he's never mentioned it since, and I tend not to mention it either. But he did get his bag on time, so I felt okay about it.
That's great. So after the Jerry Lawler match, you joined the WCW for a brief time in '93, losing to Sting. But what was that moment like for you, stepping into the ring with a guy the caliber of Sting?
Yeah, I didn't really join WCW. That was just a one-off. I went down to TV tapings, and they put me on TV and, gave me a name and went out there with Sting, which I don't know if he remembers that either. I mean, that was a long time ago. I'll tell you, though, he was an absolute professional. Okay, at that point in my career, I was a nobody. I mean, just a nobody. And I'm one of those people that's showing up basically to get beat up by people like Sting, right? And I look back on that match, and it was actually a pretty decent match. He took care of me in that he allowed me to do some stuff. And again, he didn't have to do that. He could have just gone out there and said, I'm going to hit you with the Stinger Splash and put you in the Scorpion Deathlock, and that's the end of it. And that's not what he did. And then afterwards, he came up to me, and I was backstage actually taking a shower, and he came into the locker room where he was not dressing, just those of us who were there to work on the show that night where we were, and shook my hand, said, good job. And again, he didn't have to do that. And I've never forgotten that. He's a very class act and treated me very well. And, my philosophy in life and business is you treat everybody the same, whether the CEO or the janitor. And it's just about respect and about treating people like human beings. And Sting did that, and that really impressed me.
With that being said, who's the nicest guy you've ever met in the wrestling business?
There's actually a lot of them. I think of my best friend in the wrestling industry is Goldust, is Dustin Runnels. Now, Dustin may not claim to be the nicest guy because he can be a little cantankerous and, he can be a little bit grumpy, but he's got a heart of gold. But so many people, Mick Foley, of course, is an awesome guy. Undertaker, you may not think of anybody. He may actually, choke slam me for saying this. But, for people that, have an interest in other folks and actually look out for the entire team. Remember one time I was going through a tough stretch, and I went to talk to Vince about things. I wasn't very happy with what was happening with me, and I'd already talked to Mark about it. And so when I go talk to Vince, he said that Mark had already talked to me, and Vince's exact words were, he worries more about you than he does himself. It's that kind of stuff. And that's, of course, why a guy like Undertaker is in the position that he is, locker room leader, is because it's not about the Undertaker. It's about what he can do for the business, and that includes everybody else. So there are seriously a lot of really good guys and gals in the wrestling industry as well. One of my favorite people is Natty Neidhart. Natty's always been wonderful to me, and it's great to see her. So a lot of people, it's hard to say who's the nicest one because, everybody's pretty cool, actually, for the most part.
Well, you joined the WWF and were hired by Jerry Lawler to rid him of his longtime nemesis, Bret Hart. Talk about that whole feud of you becoming a dentist there in WWF.
Yeah, I was really excited. I'd come to Smoky Mountain Wrestling and had Jim Ross was the color commentator at the time. He got me a tryout with WWE. He was still working with them. He was on hiatus from on-camera stuff, but he was still working with WWE. So he got me a tryout. It went really well. Signed a developmental contract with them, and I'm all excited. I'm over the moon, man. 'Cause, again, ever since I was a little kid, all I ever wanted is to be a professional athlete. And I was like, wow, it's happened. I'm going to be a WWE superstar. So I get flown from Knoxville up to New York, LaGuardia Airport, and taken in a limousine to Stamford, Connecticut, which is the headquarters of WWE. It's about half an hour drive. I'm a country boy from rural northeast Missouri. I've never been in a limousine in my life, man. So I'm just over the moon thinking, this is awesome, right? I'm like Ric Flair. I'm limousine riding, jet flying, the whole deal, right? So go to meet with Vince, and Vince asked me if I had ever been afraid to go to the dentist. And I thought that it was some kind of mind game. He was trying to figure out something about my underlying psychology. So, I don't know. I've never really been afraid to go to the dentist. I'm like, no, sir. And so when he told me he had an idea for a character, it was a wrestling dentist, Isaac Yankem. And then he does the Vince laugh, and he goes, get it? I yank him. And I'm just looking at him and thinking to myself, this is the most powerful man in the wrestling industry. So I cannot reveal what I'm thinking, because what I was thinking was, dude, you flew me all the way up here from Knoxville to tell me I'm going to be a wrestling dentist? That's the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So anyway, and remember going back home and thinking, they're never going to do that. They'll figure out something else. Well, Vince seriously loved the idea and thought it was not a rip. It was not a joke. I mean, he thought it was a great idea. I couldn't sink my teeth into it, pun intended. So yeah, it never really, just wasn't something that, part of in wrestling, you have to be able to invest in the character, right? Yeah. And you either have to think that the character's cool and I can make this work, or for a lot of, people there, this is me just turned up to 11, right? Or it's some aspect of my personality really accentuated. There was no part of me in that character. And that's what made it so difficult. I was very fortunate because I got to work with Bret Hart right off the bat. A lot of pressure there. Bret's one of the absolute handful of top performers in the entire company. Again, at that SummerSlam match, I think it was a pretty good match, mainly because Bret really helped me through it. But then after that, of course, I just couldn't do the character, and people could see that. Like when you're not invested as a performer, the crowd could see that. So I didn't do myself any favors along the way. It really was a great opportunity, probably for someone else, not so much for me, because I just never could make it work. But it did allow me to get my foot in the door, allow me to work with Bret Hart, which was pretty dadgum awesome. So in the end, it's an important chapter in my story, but one that I'm glad that I was able to close.
So, Kane, hold that thought, because we were up against yet another break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into the transition into your character, Kane, right there in the WWF/WWE. That is on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with former WWE Hall of Famer Kane. It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations. Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant banker at one of the 4 Tuscaloosa locations today. Bryant Bank, an equal housing lender, and as always, a member of the FDIC.
the flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
It is Girl Scout cookie time, and if you guys like Girl Scout cookies, Strange Brew Coffee House now offers Girl Scout cookie frappes at all locations, including Samoa, Thin Mint, and Tagalong. Delicious frappes are made with real Girl Scout cookies. Strange Brew Coffee House can be found at the University of Alabama campus, also up in Tupelo, Mississippi, if you are heading up there to Tupelo, or their home location over in Starkville, Mississippi. Go by and get a delicious Girl Scout cookie frappe today at one of the Strange Brew Coffee House locations.
Welcome back, Tuscaloosa. You're listening to Tide 100.9 ESPN Radio. And today, our guest is WWE Hall of Famer Kane, better known as Mayor Glenn Jacobs. Glenn, you've been around the world. You've been to so many cool places. You got to travel with WWE here, there, and everywhere. You already said that your father was in the Air Force. You were born in Spain. You mentioned that in the first segment. But you didn't get that experience to be an Army brat, or a military brat, I should say, with him being in the Air Force. But what are some places that you have been or wrestled that you were like, wow, this place is neat, or just some cool places that you were at, the kind of the awe factor?
Oh, man, one of the great advantages of being in WWE is you literally go all over the world. I've been on every continent except for Antarctica. I think I can count almost 50 countries, of course, all 50 states. So just everywhere around the world. When I think about specific places, Madison Square Garden, of course, pops to mind, the world's most famous arena. And the first time I went there, just unbelievable experience. Then also got to go to Japan quite a bit, actually. I went to Australia. I spent 2 months in Australia filming a movie in the early 2000s, which was an amazing experience. One of the coolest places I actually ever went was in Brussels, Belgium. They have, it was called like the National Forest Arena, I think was the name of the place, but it was this old building. And when you come into the arena, the bus would go under the building itself down to a parking garage, which was old. It looked like it could have actually had horse-drawn carriages down there. It was that old. But on the walls was graffiti and tags from like all the different groups that had played there. So you had like the Scorpions had painted stuff on the wall, and everyone you could think of. And this thing was probably 200 feet long, right? And it was just really cool to see that. South America as well, a little bit, of course, all through Europe and a little bit through the Middle East. And even, one of my favorite places is actually, this doesn't sound like anything exotic, but I love the Maritimes in Canada because it's just kind of cool to go up in Halifax, as well as like Charlottetown, which is the original capital of Canada. So I had to see a lot of stuff. Now, we were always traveling and always had a show to do, so it wasn't like I got to hang out and actually see a whole lot of stuff. But it was cool to, sometimes just be in a place and be able to see something really unique.
So let's go back to the WWE for a second. In April of 1997, they started to slowly build the character that you were known for as Kane. Talk about how that whole story came about, please.
I was in USWA at the time, and I got a call that they had an idea for me. And I don't remember who called me. I don't remember quite how that took place. It might have been Jim Cornette. It might have been Bruce Pritchard. But in any case, so I call up there and it was like, hey, we have an idea. You're going to be the Undertaker's brother. Like, okay, that's awesome. We're going to put you under a mask because I was coming off of the Isaac Yankem and then the fake Diesel characters. So we're going to put you under a mask and you're going to be the Undertaker's long lost brother. Now, initially, this whole thing was supposed to have been hot-shotted, okay? It was just one match because they needed someone to have a match with Undertaker. Around that time, Vader, that was when Vader got arrested in Kuwait. So he had been Undertaker's opponent, and he was incapacitated for the moment. And that's kind of where they got this idea, out of desperation, really. But Vince liked it so much that he was like, why are we just going to waste one match? This thing has legs and it's an awesome story. So we actually need to build this. And instead of just building the story for one match, it needs to be a long-term storyline, around this character. And, I think that this was the greatest bit of epic storytelling WWE's ever done. I mean, it's like mythology, right? Because you have these two characters that had a shared history outside of WWE. So again, it was really somewhat mythological. And, I was thrilled just to have the opportunity to work with Undertaker. I'd had a couple failed gimmicks. So no matter what, this was a huge step in the right direction. And then, it was just a really cool, awesome concept. And meetings with Vince and Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard, and, going over things like what did the costume look like and all this different stuff. So the other thing was they are very invested in this, and the company wants to see it succeed. Undertaker wants to see it succeed. So for me, I knew that this was make or break. I mean, I would never get an opportunity like this again, certainly never get an opportunity as big as this one again. So I had to make it work. So on the one hand, I was really excited because of the opportunity. On the other hand, there was some anxiety and trepidation because this was it. And, basically I'd been given this thing on a silver platter, but then I had, to mix metaphors here, but I had to carry it across the goal line, right? And that part of it was up to me. So luckily at that point in my career, I realized that I could do this. And that's where the earlier failures actually helped me because, I'd been there for 2 years by now and I knew what it was all about and I knew that I could pull it off.
So with all that, Glenn, when did you feel like your character actually made it? Like this was going to be a real and very permanent thing?
It was at State College, Pennsylvania. And that was right before, I think it was the Royal Rumble or maybe Survivor Series. It was Survivor Series in San Jose, California, I believe. And that was the one where Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had the casket match, right? And at the end of the match, I came out and beat everybody up and then turned on Undertaker, chokeslammed him in the casket and set the casket on fire.
Right.
At State College, we did a thing where we were teasing Undertaker and Kane coming together. And the idea was that way no one would see the swerve when we did the business at the pay-per-view. So Undertaker is in the ring, and Triple H and Shawn Michaels have attacked him. They've beat him down. Remember, Triple H was on crutches. He'd hurt his knee or something. So he's beating him with crutches. They're beating him up. And the crowd started chanting, "We want Kane." And I actually get goosebumps even thinking about it now. And that was the moment that I realized that, oh my gosh, there are 15,000 people chanting, "We want Kane." And it's like, yeah, I think this thing might have legs. And then, of course, because that's ultimately, I think what people wanted to see is, yeah, it's cool to see Undertaker and Kane fight. But what they want to see is Kane and Undertaker fight other people. And, and then that was kind of the first tease of that. So that one was just, like I said, I'd never experienced that before, that kind of just, crowd reaction. And then I came out, of course, the roof blew off the place and go down and I clean house on DX and all this stuff and get up at the top of the stage and, do the Undertaker thing where I go down and kneel and all that. And, the audience had no idea that was actually the kiss of death, for him. So it was a really, really good bit of business that we did.
That's awesome. So guys, we were up against yet another break, and when we come back, we are going to continue the interview with Kane, talking about his match at King of the Ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then of course the transition from Kane in the mask to not having the mask. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with Mayor Glenn Jacobs, aka Kane, from the WWE, right here on the Stingray Show.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m., The Martin Houston Show.
Join the Martin Houston Show for a free-for-all Friday. We'll, of course, review the NFL draft through round one. We'll also continue to look at Alabama football and the portal. Will there be any more surprises? We'll break them all down right here on your home for Alabama Sports Tide 100.9, 1230 a.m. WTBC. Also, you can join the Martin Houston Show on Facebook at Alabama Sports with Martin Houston. We'll have those conversations and more.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their Spring Plant Sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football. Alabama touchdown. Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
We want to welcome you back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is WWE Hall of Famer and former WWE superstar Kane, who is now the mayor of Knox County, Mr. Glenn Jacobs. So let's go on ahead and continue our interview with WWE Hall of Famer Kane. All right, so let's go to 1998, and a lot of people were upset about this. At the King of the Ring, you defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin in a first blood match to become the WWF champion. However, one night later, you lost it again to Stone Cold Steve Austin. How upset were you that you only held the championship for one day?
I was not upset at all, actually. I was really happy because the stipulation of the first blood match was if I didn't win, I set myself on fire. Right. So that's a lot of incentive to actually win the match. But nevertheless, winning the title was amazing. But that next night in Cleveland, dropping it back to Austin, I mean, that was off the hook. I have never been in front of a crowd that was that electric. All they wanted to see was Austin kick my butt and win the title back. And I think that also to that point, I believe that was the highest rated segment of Raw, up until then. And I kind of feel like, and this is not because of me, obviously, but I kind of feel like that match and that segment really helped. It was like a booster rocket. I mean, we were already on our way, and I think that helped shoot it a little higher, because, it gave Austin a credible opponent. I don't think anyone could believe that I actually beat him the night before. Okay. And that's what they wanted to see, was they wanted to see Austin come back on top. And then as a bonus, that was also when you got the tease of the Brothers of Destruction, because it was kind of the first time that Undertaker came out after the match and chased Austin off. So that was the first time that you'd seen Undertaker and Kane in the ring in a non-hostile, non-adversarial role. And then the camera pans to Austin to the top of the ramp, and the look on his face was priceless, because it was that look of basically, you're out in the ocean and you see fins of great white sharks popping up. That's what Austin's face looked like. He realized, oh my gosh, this is the start of something, that's going to change the business. So yeah, it would have been great it'd been great to hold the title for months. That'd have been wonderful, but we accomplished what we needed to accomplish, and it didn't hurt me at all. When you think about my career, it actually helped me a lot. And here's the thing. Yeah, I had it for a night. Well, so did Andre the Giant. And how many people actually get to be WWE World Champions? So it was pretty important, even if I only had it for a day.
Yes.
I had this professor in college, Dr. Andy Gillenton. He was actually my academic advisor as well, but he was doing a study for WWE, and, he got to hang out with you guys backstage and all this, but he was telling us all these great stories, but he said there was this one guy over in the corner that was just funny, is cracking everybody up, is making everybody laugh. That guy was you. That guy was you, Glenn.
Oh.
With that being said, who are some of the funniest guys that you've got to work with there in the wrestling business?
Again, there's quite a few. Owen Hart was awesome, and of course, Owen would rid himself just to make everybody laugh. Okay, he didn't care who the target of his practical joke was. So sometimes it did. It backfired on him, and he was okay with that. Road Dogg's also just, a really funny dude naturally. And Daniel Bryan was another, his humor is a little different, but nevertheless, just a really fun guy to be around.
Real quick follow-up to that. Looking back at your career, when you were tag teaming with Daniel Bryan, it looked like you were having the time of your life. But what is the most fun you ever had in your career? And just, you were thoroughly enjoying it?
That was one of them. Working with him and being the comedic element on the show was such a departure from what I'd done before that was very gratifying to me, because I'd show people that I wasn't just that my talents were more than just playing the big brooding monster, the big silent type, right? That I could actually be funny as well. And then just that run with Undertaker, the initial run, was just unbelievable. I mean, it really was. And, traveling with Paul Bearer and again, going around the country, going around the world at a time when, the wrestling business was the hottest thing in entertainment. That was a lot of work, but it was something that most people will never, ever, even in the wrestling business, I don't think there's going to be another attitude here. So it's something that most people will never, ever experience. And we had like a 2-year stretch where we sold out every arena that we went to, which is just unbelievable. And just never see that. I'll never see that before. Closest probably ever came was the Hulk Hogan era. And I still don't think that was where got to where the Attitude Era did. So, they're different times, but nevertheless, each was fun in its own way. And then also just the overall career. I mean, I got to work with so many great people. got to do so many cool things, see so many amazing things, be involved in so much stuff. I've been very blessed to have lived the life that I had and had the career in WWE that I did.
All right. In 2001, at the Royal Rumble, you eliminated 11 superstars. Tell us how difficult it is to go through a Royal Rumble match when you have 30 superstars coming in all at different times, but there's still a lot of bodies they are in the ring at one time.
Yeah, it is very difficult. I don't like Royal Rumbles that much, actually. Not Royal Rumbles. I don't like Battle Royales that much. I know a lot of people at Royal Rumbles, their favorite event of the year, because of everything that's involved there as far as getting the title match at WrestleMania and all that stuff. But as far as a Battle Royal, a lot of times they're kind of boring and, just a lot of people in the ring and not a whole lot going on. Obviously the Rumble's different, but nevertheless, the format of Battle Royals is not my favorite match. And part of it too is, you have all this stuff going on, and especially with the Royal Rumble, that is incredibly complicated. Yeah. And I was in the ring for almost an hour. So the problem is you have to not only remember what you need to do, but also what everybody else needs to do as well. Right. Because if one little thing goes wrong, it messes everything up. Again, there's anyone that can do that, and seen people like Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Rey Mysterio, and others that can stay in there for that long and make a good match. I think that's one of the signs of a true professional. There were a lot of great spots along the way. Never forget coming out with Honky Tonk Man and taking the guitar from him and hitting him over the head with it. Never thought that would happen for me. But I think the thing that I remember the most about that match is the fact that when I first went out, my hair is really dry and I have curly, dry hair, right? So I go out and I'd have to put a lot of product, of conditioner and all this stuff to keep my hair wet. That would work for about 15, 20 minutes before my hair would start to dry out and frizz. So I start the match and I look really cool and I got my normal wet hair and it's slick and everything. By the end of the match, it looked like it stuck my finger in an electrical socket because my hair's out to here, and of course I got so close and was eliminated by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Right. So I've never actually won a Royal Rumble, but pretty cool to be in there that long. And I mean, look, man, if you get beat by Austin, that's okay. Right. That's pretty high level anyway. So, that was definitely one of the highlights of my career.
Well, guys, we are up against our last break, and when we come back, we are going to get into Kane's unmasking, and we're also going to talk about his political venture there as being mayor. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. For 75 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their spring plant sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant banker at one of the 4 Tuscaloosa locations today. Bryant Bank, an equal housing lender, and as always, a member of the FDIC.
For more from Tide 100.9, let's it fly! And there's it! Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and SoundCloud.
Are you guys sick and tired of spending $100 to $200 to $300 on a nice meal? If that's the case, then you need to go by a place that keeps a little money in your pocket. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats, which features Black Angus prime selection of steaks. You can find them at 3201 10th Avenue, right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats is a company that believes in great customer service, fair pricing, and a place where you are appreciated. Go by and see them today right there at South's Finest Meats. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. Our guest today is Mayor Glenn Jacobs of Knox County and also WWE Hall of Famer Kane.
Glenn, the late, great Bobby Heenan, who was always funny. It just always kept us all in stitches. He talked about wrestling fans. He was on Larry King one time, and Larry King asked him, what's the craziest thing about wrestling fans? And he said 2 things. They can reproduce and they can vote. But what is the craziest interaction you ever had with a fan?
Actually, I remember one time, wasn't me, but Undertaker got a locket from a fan. I forget how I got it. It just showed up. We're in the locker room looking at it, and he pops open this locket, and then inside it was a vial of red liquid. And we're like, dude, someone sent you a vial of blood, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's that. Holy cow, wow. And then I've had, I remember one time too, I was at an autograph session, and this lady comes up to me, and this was before I was talking. This is probably like 98 or something like that. And a lady comes up to me, and she had a homemade doll, right? And it was big. It was probably a foot tall. And she asked me if she could have a lock of hair. And I was like, no, that thing looks like a voodoo doll. And, if all of a sudden I start having sharp pains and I can't explain it, I'll know it's because I gave you a lock of hair. But, I will tell you this though. Those kind of weird, strange interactions are very rare. Most people are very gracious. And at this point in my life, one of the things that gives me most satisfaction is when someone comes up to me and just wants to thank me for giving them years of entertainment. And that happens all the time.
And Kane, I would like to know, there was a match that you ultimately lost that led to your unmasking. Talk about the transition of going from the masked Kane to the unmasked Kane. How difficult was that of a transition for you?
I felt that I had gone as far as I could in the mask. The mask was amazing because it added mystique to the character, made the character very mysterious. At the same time, it limited my ability to show the audience the emotions that I was feeling because they couldn't see my face, which is the main way that we show people how we're feeling. Yes. So I kind of felt that the mask had the limitations of the mask were more confining than the mystique and everything that it added to the character. So I wanted to try something new. No one else wanted to, because everyone figured if it ain't broke, don't fix it, with the exception of Vince McMahon. And of course, obviously the two most important people were Vince McMahon and me. And we were both on board with taking the mask off.
Right.
But then we also didn't just want it to be, all of a sudden, bam, there's Glenn. That's where Vince had the idea of the shaved head and shaved eyebrows and just very menacing look. So that night at Madison Square Garden, again, there's some trepidation because, the mask was great. We didn't have to do that. I think the character could have kept on going as it was under the mask. But what happened was it actually kind of created a new character, okay? Because it was not, it was completely different. I mean, you had Kane under the mask, and at that point he's more kind of a superhero. Whereas now you had this psychological monster, okay? And, it was like all of a sudden, like the world saw the real Kane, which was terrible and ugly and horrible. So it did, man. It really, I think, breathes a second life into the Kane character. And then, of course, you have the history and the legacy of everybody knowing, you have the mascot. So that formed the basis for this new character. But once I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a completely different track than we were on before. I just, again, I was like, wow, this is really, really cool, really unique. And also had the opportunity to do stuff like, think of the Great Muda. And he was literally two characters, right? You had the unmasked Muda and the masked Muda. So it kind of gave me that component where, as well, where, I can almost become two different characters in WWE. It's pretty neat.
My final question for you is this. We are obviously here in Tuscaloosa on Tide 100.9, but I've got to ask. Tennessee had not beaten Alabama in about 15 years, so I've got to know what you were doing the day of the game and how you celebrated the Tennessee Volunteers knocking off the Crimson Tide.
I actually had to go out of town, so I was not at Neyland Stadium for that game, which was a huge disappointment. I did listen to it on the radio, and when that field goal went through, I was driving in my car, and frankly, I almost wrecked because, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And that I wish I'd been there because that was an amazing night, right. And they pulled the goalpost down and end up parading them through the city and threw them in the Tennessee River. And, we thought that, we'd beaten Florida last year too. And we thought that would be the highlight of the season. And then to beat Alabama, and I give Alabama, University of Alabama football, I give it a hard time. And the reason is because it's the best program in the country. And Nick Saban, he's just like Tom Brady. No one wants to admit this, but he's the GOAT. He's the best coach, maybe ever. So to be able to beat that team, especially coming off of what we have had here for 2 decades of, Tennessee football has just not been great. That was a huge highlight, for all of us. And it actually transcends football here in East Tennessee. That really, when our football team or basketball team is doing well, but especially the football team, that changes everyone's attitude. And it's almost like the morale of the entire community is improved.
So, Mr. Jacobs, we really do want to thank you immensely for this wonderful interview and taking time out of your busy schedule. And before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to give a shout out to, or please tell people where they can follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is at Glenn Jacobs TN, 2 N, so it's GLENN JACOBSTN. And then also on Facebook and Instagram as well. And I just like to say, go Vols.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Excellent.
Well,
hey, thank you guys so much.
So guys, that is going to wrap up yet another edition of the Stingray Show. We hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed it with WWE Hall of Famer Kane. And when we come back tomorrow evening, I do want to mention that the Alabama and Ole Miss baseball game number 2 of that series will be from 6:30 until about 9:30, and then immediately after college baseball, we will be right back here on the Stingray Show again. I'm going to tentatively say around 10 o'clock or so make sure you tune in for yet another Stingray Show tomorrow evening, immediately following the Alabama-Ole Miss baseball game number 2. Tomorrow evening, following that game, you will hear another Stingray Show right here on Tide 100.9. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday out there. Enjoy all of this beautiful weather, and we will see you guys on down the line. And on down the line is tomorrow evening around 10 p.m. right here on the Stingray Show. Good night, Tuscaloosa.
Then there's just